Welcome back, everyone, to the world of amazing open source tools for communication, for media, for developing your hopes and dreams. This is Chris here, just checking in with some interesting WordPress news from WP Tavern. Very good source for news related to the WordPress content management system. An interesting trend over the last few years as a lot of organizations that I've seen or been involved with or know people who work with, there was this movement away from developing and maintaining your own open source platforms for your business or for your various teams and operations that you do, and moving to big hosted platforms like Slack or GitHub or Jira and Bitbucket and all of these big proprietary tools out there, with I guess the logic behind it being they have more resources, more hands on deck to do a lot of the maintenance and a lot of the back end work that really a lot of smaller companies might not be able to keep in house. So it made a lot of sense, but there's an interesting sort of elastic band effect now where some of these organizations and projects are considering open source alternatives. One of the big ones, of course, the big media headline one was the switch from Twitter to Mastodon for a lot of social media users. But this one also interesting. WordPress contributors continue exploring migration of public and private messages from Slack to Matrix. There were various browser extensions and tools where people could download their private messages. But this is an interesting comment here from one of the contributors on this team. Brings up an interesting point. Slack is well supported and accessible to a very wide audience, something that is not up for argument. A lot of these open source / decentralized concepts are not accessible to all or most. And at first I thought, does that mean, is he talking about how maybe they're a little more difficult to install, like they're not as easy, like if you're switching to Mastodon, for example, you've got to pick one of these apps here. There's different apps available for different platforms. There's no telling, exactly, which one might be best or which one might be more accessible if you have certain issues. But he seems to be talking about assistive technologies, so people who might have certain disabilities or issues accessing technology. The decentralized media world walks a fine line between a great thing and a lot of hypocrisy. On one hand, claiming to give users a voice, on the other hand, knowingly excluding users of assistive tech. Years of GitHub issues do not lie. Matrix has not been around all that long, but there are plenty of other examples that have been around long enough. The Slack accessibility team is best in its class. They are consistently responsive and very engaged with users. It's interesting that someone from the WordPress community uh, would say something like this, that the decentralized media world, in which, I mean, you could include open source technology like WordPress, for example, which is decentralized if you self-host it, that all of that walks a fine line between a great thing and a lot of hypocrisy. On one hand, claiming to give users a voice. Is that a claim? I mean, WordPress does make that claim. A lot of open source tools, like that's the idea behind it. I don't know. It's not exactly like a marketing claim. It's just the nature of the technology. So on one hand, claiming to give users a voice. On the other hand, knowingly excluding users of assistive tech. That's also interesting because I know that there's in the WordPress community specifically, from what I've seen, there is a lot of energy behind accessibility. You'll pretty much see it as a topic of almost every blog post that comes out of WP Tavern is moves and operations that the accessibility teams are doing. So this is a very interesting objection, particularly because there was a lot of enthusiasm behind the switch to Mastodon, and in terms of accessibility, I wouldn't know which of these apps I should use. I would presume that the Twitter app, I'm only speculating because I don't have the Twitter app on my devices. I've logged into the browser when I want to look at Twitter, so I don't know, but I would presume that the app is pretty accessible. And there wasn't really the same sort of cautionary notices as far as switching to to Mastodon. So this is interesting. My sub theory would be that Slack, I think the user interface must be addictive or something, because I know that when some people get in there, they just want to start doing everything in there. And so, like, all these different groups that you might have, they might all have a Slack instance, Slack channels, different integrations that you can bring into Slack. You can set up meetings, you can shoot messages off, you can deploy things, you can interface with GitHub and Jira and all these other tools. So I feel that maybe just Slack is something that is kind of sticky as far as software goes, and maybe this transition might be a little difficult to pull off, but I think it's worth exploring, and it's interesting again seeing this elastic band effect going from some of these big proprietary systems to more open source ones. But there you go. I think I've speculated long enough on that. I think it'll be interesting to watch, and I'm going to keep an eye out for this. By all means, if you'll see a link down below for the Ask Me About My Org Mode Agenda t-shirt if you're interested. And by all means, if you think someone will get some value out of this, consider sharing the video. And of course, you can give it a like if you enjoyed this, and subscribe to see more zany open source world content coming at you. But I'm going to leave it there. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all next time.